Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Williams. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Williams. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Williams, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. This is the first show since our week hiatus. I was out in Washington, D.C. with the Bridge Alliance, which is an organization that is doing some very, very important work. What they're doing is they're trying to get us all involved in the body politics. We are going to be controlling our own destiny, all of those things that they're concerned about. It's not about Democrat, it's not about Republican, it's not about all these other factions or facets of the political body, but somehow to tell us this is how we are going to take back control of the country. So that's what I was in D.C. working on for 4 days. It was an excellent convention, excellent conference that we had there. I have a whole lot of video cut-ups. It's interesting because one of the attendees was good old conservative Bill Kristol, also known as William Kristol. We know who he is. But I tell you what he had to say about the Republican Party, I wish I had. It's a 7-minute video, and I don't want to take up 7 minutes of our time to tell you what it's about. But before we get started, you know what I'm going to tell all my great people here. Please remember that the first thing I'd like to ask you to do is to immediately share the show. Share the show. Ensure that other people get a chance to see this, because we know how the algorithms work. The way the algorithms work, it's that, these progressive shows are not going to get the throughput that they rightfully deserve. Why? Because, well, you tell me. Why do you think that is the case? Anyhow, we can make the difference. Just like I'll be telling everybody here, it is imperative that you go out to vote now. You know, right now we are in here in Texas and in other states. Early voting has begun. And what we want to make sure is that every single American citizen go out there and early vote. And here's the kicker. If every American citizen go out there and vote, guess what? Our policies win. And why? And how do I know our policies win? Because most Americans support the policies that we progressives are fighting for. They don't necessarily call them progressives. They don't necessarily call them liberal. They don't call it any of those things. So we don't even have to ourselves. But what they do is the values that we have, the values that we support, are the values that every single American that you know out there, these are the values that they're striving for. These are the values they're looking for. So today, what we're gonna do, first of all, is I want to get rid of some of the things that I see happening with Donald Trump. The playbook is on, folks. The playbook is on. And unless not only those of us that are in the media and otherwise recognize it so that we can inform the others about what's going on, we will lose. If we don't understand the playbook that Trump is running now, right now, we will lose. Because the playbook that he's running right now has a track record. The playbook that he's using right now can actually convince enough people, can actually put enough people in fear to then support this guy. Now, here is a part of the playbook, and I want you to listen well. And folks, if you're just joining us, please, if you're on Blog Talk Radio, tweet the show. If you're on Blog Talk Radio as well, go ahead and tweet and go ahead and put it on your Tumblr, etc. If you're on the Coffee Party Network, please do the same. Now, if you're on Facebook Live, please go ahead and share this program right away. It is essential that we get this program shared to as many folks as possible. Why? Because unless we get the message out, unless we're out there doing what we have to do, there is going to be no win. We can win. The win is in our we decide now if we're going to win. But just as we are fighting hard to engage our people, Trump is not only fighting hard to engage the Trumpists. They don't need engagement. He's fighting hard to engage our people. And our people have sometimes a fear in them as well that have them voting against their own interests. That's why you had the Obama voters who also voted for Trump. Here is the deal. You notice two big stories occurred. Started last week and also started this week. Or it's going through this week. Big story. Primero, número uno. Story number one. The caravan of people coming from Central and South America, and they show you in a helicopter and they show you aerial views of an invading force coming to America. And then there's a caption of Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is telling everybody, guess whose fault it is that all those people that look like that, you see all those brown people, some of them are MS-13. Some of those brown people are also terrorists. And they're coming to the southern border. And Beto O'Rourke, he wants open borders. And Democrats, they want open borders. And I am here to save you. I am here to defend you. I am here to make sure that doesn't happen. You think that can work with a whole lot of moderate voters? You think that can vote with a whole lot of voters that are right now on the edge? They know they should be voting the progressive vote right now, but they're scared because Donald Trump is using the media. Donald Trump is using his Twitter. Donald Trump is using all these things to scare them with pictures. So they see on coming up the Pan American Highway, going in from Guatemala into Mexico. What are they seeing? They're seeing a caravan of brown people coming in to America, about to fester around the border. And what is that going to do? It's going to instill that carnal fear, not that intellectual, not that mental fear, not that mental thinking that we all should be having. It would inflict in them a fear. That's number one. So that is going to peel. And this is no question. I'm telling you, I have been in state after state, city after city, town after town. Some Americans, when given the right triggers, will be scared, you know what, of those brown people that are coming up the Pan American Highway into America with the Democrats who want open borders and are going to bring them and let them in. If they're elected to the Congress, they're going to allow them in. That is the spiel right now, folks. That's the spiel. And that is what you have to fight. No Democrat wants criminals in this country. No Democrats want evil folk in this country. But the carnal fear of many Americans, and by the way, it's not just white Americans now, because the fallacy that we have in this country is that this big immigration thing that plays a role on how people vote is restricted to racist white people. It's not true. It's a good narrative to play, but go to town in several towns in Louisiana and here in Texas, and you will find out something. There are quite a few black folk who are very anti-immigrant as well. They don't talk about it, but they vote on it. Trump is playing a game, a very good game that elitist liberals and elitist progressives just simply seem to not understand. And the Democratic Party as well does not seem to understand the carnality of the game Trump is playing. They say sit down in their offices and they laugh at Trump. Oh, look at that silly person lying again about those immigrants. But they're pictures of that caravan coming. There are pictures of that caravan coming. And for that non-thinking, that limited thinking American, which we have a whole lot of those, enough to tip an election, that's what they're seeing. So instead of making fun of Trump and what he's doing and the lies he's telling, we better be telling our people directly that is not what's going to happen. We have to be informing our people that that is not what's happening, because many will believe it and many will vote on it. Remember, I've been constantly talking about pulling defeat out of victory. This is one of them. Remember, I've been constantly telling you about the playbook that Trump will have near the end of the election that will do the tipping. And why does he do it near the end of the election? Because a lot of times he expects there to be not enough time for them to counteract what he's doing. But there is. Independent media gives you that opportunity. And not only because we know those clowns on mainstream media, they don't get it. They don't understand how the average American citizen think, whether good or bad. They don't understand how the average American citizen, they don't go to the American citizen. They think the American citizens go to them. I mean, I went to a conference in Washington, D.C. last week, and I saw just that. There is this very famous magazine editor interviewing a book writer, and he's talking about Greensboro, North Carolina, and a woman in the audience. This black woman in the audience was trying to shout to the guy in this conference, what you're talking about, Greensboro, South Carolina, isn't that way anymore. So the narrative that you're putting out isn't necessarily right. And instead of this elitist magazine writer saying, okay, ma'am, modify what he's saying or get off of what he's saying or, do something. He did what many do to many American citizens. He just ignored her. He just ignored her. That is how you lose the vote. That is how, when people think you're not listening, it doesn't matter. That is how you lose the vote. That is how you do it. So, primeramente número uno, what is Trump doing? Number one, he's scaring the bejesus out of the American citizen. But then there's another sect of Americans who believe Trump is a stooge to Putin, to the Russians, right? So it creates a big problem because what's going to happen is we are going to be thinking we're going to be thinking Russia is having an influence on this election. We're going to be thinking Trump is beholden to the Russians. So what did he do? He claimed to get out of the nuclear treaty. I don't remember the name of that particular one. I think it's the ABM treaty. I don't quite remember it because, again, I didn't get it quite well. And then Russia starts to scream. Oh, you better not do that or whatever. It's a game. It's a game between Trump and Putin. It's a game between Trump and Putin. Putin is giving Trump slack so that he can win elections. So he pulls out of this treaty with the expectation that Americans are going to now think, oh my God, if Trump can really buck Putin by coming out of a ballistic treaty or a nuclear treaty, all the things the Democrats have been saying about Trump is somehow not true. Because if Putin really had something on Trump, he wouldn't be going ahead and saying, I am pulling out of of this treaty. No, wait a minute. They are playing you. The reality is we all know that Trump is a stooge to the Russian financially. He is a stooge to the oligarchs, and the oligarchs are only in existence under the blessing of Putin. We are being played again psychologically. These are all psychological games. Putin knew that he couldn't beat the United States in military means, but he's cleaning our clocks from a psychological point of view, both through social media, both through misinformation, through all these things, and it could work. Now with Trump saying, oh, that stuff about Russia serves two purposes. One, it makes people believe that he's really not beholden to the Russians. The Russians have given him permission to say the things that he's saying. And this is conjecture on my part, but logical conjecture. Logical conjecture. We don't have it in writing, but it is logical what I am saying. And this close to the election, there was no reason at this point in time. Obama knew that Russia was kind of cheating on these deals, and we are as well. We all knew that. Why do it a few days, 18 days or so before the election. It's that November, or I mean that October surprise. Yes, it is, but it served two purposes. One, it served that he's a strong man because he's standing up to Putin. And remember, we all think that Putin owns him. But if he's standing up to Putin like that, Putin must not own him. Folks, we got to use our heads. We have to counteract that now. The independent media has got to be out there. TYT, I hope to see that on your show tonight. Majority Report, I didn't watch you today, but I hope you covered this Majority Report. And all the other independent progressive stations, we have to be letting our people know this. But it's not enough for us to be letting our people know this. Our people have to expand the horizon. Our people have to expand geometrically to tell everybody they know it's a farce that is being run on the American people now. It is a farce. The ballistic treaty is a farce. That we're pulling out is a farce. That we're pulling out of, that the people are coming to attack America is a farce. And we have to let the people know that NAFTA really got renegotiated. It's a farce. NAFTA got renegotiated, and guess in what form it got renegotiated? A lot of the items that were in the TPP, guess where they ended up? In NAFTA. It's just that the TPP would have covered a whole lot more countries. Folks, Americans don't know all this stuff in detail, nor do they need to. What they need are trusted voices informing them that they're being played, and informing them that if their pocketbooks are lighter, if their health care is going up, if their education is going up and their student loans are now not going to be forgiven, or their student loans interest rates are going to be going up, or if the deficit is getting so big that the leader of the Republicans are saying it's not the tax cut scam that caused the deficit, it's really what? The social programs. So you give away $1.5 trillion, it increases the budget, and somehow it is a social safety net that wasn't increased that is increasing the budget. And Americans are going to buy that. But you know why they can buy that? Because mirrors, smoke and mirrors. Look, Russia, we're getting out of the ballistic missiles. So we're not talking about Medicare today. Oh, those people that are coming up the Pan American Highway to invade America with MS-13 and those Middle Eastern brown people that are going to come and terroristically attack us. So we're not talking about Medicare, Social Security that's going to be cut if the Republicans get reelected. We're not talking about that. So everybody's eyes are on those two issues today, and they will be tomorrow and all these other times. And where we should be pushing a message that if you elect these guys, your Social Security is going to be diminished. Your Medicare is going to be diminished. Your health care is going to be diminished. Your student loans are going to cost you more if you can get them at all. Your student loans may be retransferred back to commercial banks, which will pilfer you. Folks, help us get out to vote. Get out to vote. Get out to vote and vote appropriately, correctly. My brothers and sisters on the Republican side, how many more times will you be lied to? Do you really think they're going? Let me tell you about the. I was straight up with the abortion issue and Kavanaugh when he got elected. But I want to tell my folks on the religious left. I mean, a religious right. Abortion is not going to be overturned. Okay. Even with Kavanaugh there, it's not going to be overturned. You're going to need about 2 more Supreme Court justices that are pretty much crazy like Kavanaugh to get that done, so that you can have Kavanaugh. What's the black guy's name that doesn't belong on the Supreme Court either? The other misogynist on the court, Clarence Thomas, and you need a couple more because some of these guys is not as much as they're right wing. They're also pragmatic right wing, and they don't wish the country wrong. And in fact, that's why they got so many Democratic votes as well. I mean, they're right wing. They have a right wing ideology. I mean, they have a conservative ideology, but they're not evil people. A lot of these guys simply are not evil people. And what is going to happen with Kavanaugh there is whenever something to simply overturn abortion occurs, the Supreme Court justice, the leader, I can't remember his name right now, the guy who runs everything, the one who runs the Supreme Court, he will not allow it to happen. Just like he saved Obamacare when all the votes were there to kill Obamacare, and he decided to change his vote to save it. He understands pragmatism. He understands pragmatism. So while I fought like hell not to have Kavanaugh on, it was never that I thought Kavanaugh would shut down abortion. So once again, you guys are being snowed. Kavanaugh is not there to shut down abortion. Kavanaugh is there for the plutocracy and bills that covers commerce and business. He is there to ensure that businesses get to do whatever the hell they want to do. The abortion issue is always an issue to bring Republicans, Republican poor people, Republican evangelicals, and all those guys into the fold. You've always been played. Abortion is an issue to play you. Let me tell you what you should be thinking, or what you should consider, my dear brothers and sisters from the Republican side. You should consider that, yes, you're religious, and yes, you do believe that abortion is a sin, and yes, you do believe that abortion is murder. Yes, you believe all those things, and that is fine. That is your right. But solve it in your church. Solve it with what you promote. Solve it within your domain. Make sure that your daughters and your loved ones don't do it or don't get into the positions where they would want to do an abortions. Because I tell you what, I live in Kingwood, a very conservative place, and I know a whole lot of parents here who are completely anti-abortion, and when their kids got pregnant, they got themselves an abortion. I know them. They probably don't know that I know, but I know it personally. Okay? So what I'm telling you, my dear friends on the Republican side, don't continue to vote. John Roberts, thank you very much. That's the head of the Supreme Court, John Roberts. Let me tell you, my dear brothers and sisters on the right, the Republican conservative, they continue to play you. They're playing all of us, right? Remember what I talked to you about the left and the right rails. They're going in the same direction. We have to bust out of there. But anyhow, I gave a 22-minute soliloquy, and I need to get with the program. Title of the program, Midterm 2018 is here. We vote, we win. We don't, we lose. That simple. That simple. There is absolute subtitle. There is absolutely no reason why progressives should not win the Senate and the House of Representatives in midterm 2018. None. Let's get busy and give everyone a reason to vote. Now, it is a simple proposition, brothers and sisters. Simple proposition. The country is currently a series of time bombs waiting to explode. Depending on which party is elected will determine whether at least some of the bombs are diffused or whether they all explode. Elect Republicans, we blow it all up. Elect Democrats, we may be able to save certain things. But right now, the pollution, the mercury that has been released in the environment in Appalachia, to my white poor brothers and sisters in Appalachia, the guy you elected poisoned you. And unfortunately, you are poisoned already. My brothers and sisters in Pasadena, Texas, I'm sorry to tell you, a lot more pollution appeared in the atmosphere just because Donald Trump is in power. And they know that TCEQ has no desire, zero desire to go out there and test what you're breathing. So the man you voted for, my dear brothers and sisters, has already poisoned you. The question is, and thirdly now, the guy you voted for has been killing your health care. The guy you voted for is ensuring that as they kill you with mercury, as they kill you with benzene, as they kill you with all these chemicals that are now allowed into the environment, that now the health care that you could possibly afford to mitigate some of the poisoning that is occurring to you, also you won't be able to afford it because he decided to sabotage it. And that sabotage simply meant business makes more money. And why is Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court? Because we are tilting the Supreme Court to business. It has very little to do with abortion. I mean, yes, I was preaching abortion, etc., women's right and all of that, which is extraordinarily important. But they're not going to mess with that. They're going to mess with it at the edges. But business, that's what it's all about. This is not a joke or a time to be purist, elitist, or anything in between. This is a time for all people of sound mind to supersede their basal and carnal instincts for the survival of the country. Make no mistake. This is not hyperbole. We can choose not to be impotent or victims. You know, impotency can be permanent. Impotency can be involuntary. But for our values and what we want and what we should have, impotence is voluntary. We can choose to be impotent or not. Make no mistake, this is not hyperbole. We can choose not to be impotent or victims. It simply means voting in droves and dragging everyone we know to the polls. Voter suppression is not depressive enough with our intrinsic volumes. We can overwhelm the system so that voter suppression is ineffective. Voter suppression is probably good for 1 or 2 points. We can overwhelm the system by 5 to 10 points because, in general, we don't vote. If we came out to vote, nothing could stop it. Nothing could stop the wave. There are not enough Trumpists. There are not enough conservatives. There are not enough Republicans to suppress a wave. One may think that Republicans are a huge majority. They own the governments in the states. They own the governments in the federal system. But you know what? It was done through cheating, gerrymandering, and many other methods. You have to do that when you're a minority wanting to govern a majority. No different than what we had in South Africa when we had apartheid. We have willing apartheid in this country by party. So folks, it is up to you. You have got to vote. Voter suppression is not depressive enough with our intrinsic volume. So let's do our job. And what is our job? Go out there and vote. It is not difficult. Make the effort. It is existential. The quality of life, I could say, oh, the country ends if we just get more time with these people. It's not that the country is going to end. It's not that some of you will die. Some of you will die, of course, because things are going to get so bad with health care, and things would get so bad with Social Security, Medicare, etc. Some of you will die. There's no doubt about that, and I'm not saying that to be exciting or whatever. That's just the numbers. The fact that Texas did not take the Medicaid expansion to the Affordable Care Act costs more than 2,000 Texans their lives every year. Okay? So people die based on policies. Based on policies, people die. And when we understand that, we can call things out. The conservative policies are to effect killings on more people than progressive policies. Now, all policies have to make some sort of a if-then sort of a decisions. But the preponderance in this current time, the preponderance of killing of people is on the conservative side. That's just the reality. But folks, this was a front page article at Daily Kos at 3 o'clock yesterday. So you know what time it is. We're going to go through that article right now. So folks, do you know what time it is?
It's time for the weekly blog post.
Está bien, mis hermanos, my brothers and sisters, mis hermanos y mis hermanas, está bien. Title of the post today is, How can How can the GOP cripple health care, Social Security, Medicare, while driving huge deficits and win? We kind of talked about that earlier, right? Smoke and mirrors. Smoke and mirrors. Hey, look at all those brown people invading us from the Pan American Highway, coming in from Honduras, from Nicaragua, from El Salvador, por Guatemala, Mexico, coming to invade us. Look at them. Do you really want them here? Come on now. See that? Forget about Medicare. Forget about Social Security and the deficits. Those people are going to kill you. They're coming to kill you. And by the way, you remember they told you that Putin owned me? They don't. He don't own me. Look what I did with the ballistic missiles I got out of the treaty, and he's pissed off at me. How could he own me if I have my master pissed off at me? He couldn't. Anyhow, here's the deal. I've lived in Texas, so I do not see the ads in what is likely considered more competitive districts. But if one extrapolates the tonality of interviews on cable news channels and on Sunday shows, one wonders why we do not take a more attacking posture. Donald Trump, right-wing media, and to some extent the mainstream media continue to tout the economy. Americans tend to think at face value, especially when coming from many sources in a repetitive manner. It is not clear that Democrats have been framing the message as easy as it should be. You know why? We have not. We must reiterate the following. Republicans should be entirely on the defensive on health care, a booming economy for the few, a tax cut that will force the reduction of Social Security and Medicare, the poisoning of their base, and with deregulations, low unemployment with no post-inflation wage gain, and much more. But they are building a clear message. The economy is doing great, so why take a chance with the Democrats? In politics, one must put the opposition on the defensive first. Remember the phrase, if you're explaining, then you're losing. Trump is not explaining. Trump is telling you what's happening. Them brown people are coming. The economy is doing great. And you don't have to fear that I'm a stooge of Russia, because look at what I'm doing. I'm pulling the plug on the treaty. You see the clear message in there? I said that in one sentence. Have you heard the Democrats come out and say, we are going to give you health care, we are going to forgive student loans, we are going to make sure that child care is there for you, we are going to make sure that you get the breaks you deserve? You don't hear a clear message, right? You will hear a lot of things. But all of these are things Americans want. Anyhow, continue. Republicans are starting to build a cohesive message that all conservative and right-wing media politicians and pundits are rolling off their tongue ad nauseum, and they are doing it in a conniving manner. You know, the mob, but let's continue. It is not too late. It is not too late at all. It is not too late. However, anyone who remembers the Buffalo Bills comeback on the Houston Oilers should have pause. To date, it is the largest comeback in NFL history. Democrats could themselves make history if they don't fight as if they are 10 points behind. They must put Republicans on the defensive, making them defend the ACA pre-existing condition sabotage, their hypocrisy as they rack up unheard of deficits, the poisoning of their constituents with deregulation, and much more. It is not at all difficult for us to repeat these issues that will help all Americans in their daily lives ad nauseum. Democrats must not allow Republicans to put them on the defensive based on lies using smoke and mirrors as their method of deflection. It is time to win once and for all. Not unlike Reagan, Trump has a sugar-coated boost built on top of a solid Obama economy. It was refreshing to read Robert Freeman's Common Dreams article. The market weighs in on Trump's economic policies. Trump is Reagan on steroids. Americans are being hoodwinked into believing that the current economy is real and sustainable. Math will prevail, and a bad crash and social program disruptions are on the horizon, and here is why. The almost 1,400-point two-day drop in the Dow was the market putting its money where its mouth is on Trump's economic and trade policies. Like so much else that is of Trump's, it's ugly. Trump Just as Trump was gifted $400 million from his father and claimed to be a self-made man, so too he inherited an economy and stock market from Obama that had been rising for the prior 8 years since 2009. In true Trumpian fashion, he claimed to have created the greatest economy of all time. In truth, the whole of Trump's economic policy has been a massive injection of debt in an already healthy economy. His tax cuts for corporations and deficit spending for military expansion have added more than $2 trillion to the national debt in just 2 years. It's like injecting adrenaline into an already healthy runner in the middle of a marathon. That's all the Trump economy is. Borrowing trillions of dollars from the future, spending it today, and pretending he is a genius. Let's be clear. Any moron with a handful of credit cards charged off to the next generation can gin up the illusion of prosperity. And, Lloyd Benson once said that to Reagan. The Trump economy is borrowing trillions of dollars from the future, spending it today, and pretending to be a genius. But the market has figured it out, and hear what it knows. You see? It is hard to be, close quote, it is hard to believe that the mainstream media continue to tout the top line numbers of the current economy. It is essential that we go much more in depth. In my book, As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom, this book right here, you can still get it at Amazon. As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom, I explained the smoke and mirrors Ronald Reagan used to give the semblance of prosperity funded by irresponsible tax cuts and Keynesian spending. That is above the head of a few people, but just look up Keynesian economics and you'll see what I'm talking about. All right. Now Senate Majority Leader is signaling, he didn't even wait till after the election. It is almost like he wants cover. So now Senate Majority Leader is signaling that the tax cut scam is not to blame for the enormous deficit. He blames Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell blamed rising federal deficits and debt on a bipartisan unwillingness to contain spending on Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, and said he sees little chance of a major deficit reduction deal while Republicans control Congress and the White House. It is disappointing, but it's not a Republican problem, McConnell said Tuesday in an interview with Bloomberg News when asked about the rising deficits and debt. It is a bipartisan problem, unwillingness to address the real drivers of the debt by doing anything to adjust those programs to the demographics of America in the future. McConnell's remarks came a day after the Treasury Department said the U.S. budget deficit grew to $779 billion in Donald Trump's first full fiscal year as president. The result of the GOP's tax cut, bipartisan spending increased the rise in interest rate payment on the debt. That's a 77% increase from the $439 billion deficit in fiscal 2015 when McConnell became majority leader. Folks, it's a scam. They're blowing up the country, and you can see it. Irresponsibility, fiscal irresponsibility, and for that they want to be re-elected, and then to cut to balance the budget from the tax cuts to the rich. They're going to cut your Social Security, they're going to cut your Medicare, they're going to cut everything because they have to. If they don't do that, we start to get implosion. It is evident that Mitch McConnell will be going after cutting Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid to reduce the federal deficit. Moreover, the majority leader said if he remains in power, he will take another crack at Obamacare repeal. But guess what? They repeal it. That immediately means everybody with pre-existing conditions, a large percentage of Americans, specifically older Americans, and a lot of kids as well, large people with pre-existing conditions, they don't have recourse. Insurance companies are businesses made to make money. When they take risks, they take calculated risk, and taking a risk on somebody with a pre-existing condition isn't a risk because they already know the risk. So they just don't insure them. So one might ask, or rather, yet Republicans have no replacement that will reduce costs. In fact, those with pre-existing conditions will likely be much worse off than the pre-ACA days. And why would they be worse off? Healthcare was cheaper in the pre-ACA days compared to what it is now. There's a doctor that I met over the weekend, and his son sent me a paper that illustrates that issue specifically: price, and how they're zooming prices up, and the calculations they're doing to zoom healthcare costs up. It's not an accident. So one must ask the question: how can the GOP hold on to the Senate by crippling healthcare, Social Security, Medicare, while driving up huge deficits and win? The truth isn't told enough times, because as opposed to engaging irrespective of ideologies, most people tend to remain in their silos and comfort zone. It is amazing how successful the discomfort of many civil engagements can be. Minds are not changed immediately, but seeds are planted, and the other side ceases being just the enemy. We need to paint a representation to individual folk and communities in a graphic manner what the draconian cuts McConnell envisions would do to their standard of living and suffering. It cuts across ideologies. Obama proved that in the long run, one's personal economy can override one's tribalism. What I'm trying to say there, right now, the stance that many of us are in is them and us. Yes, I'm trying to get all of us's out there to vote, progressives out there to vote. But right now, it is in the interest of conservatives, middle-class conservatives, poor conservatives, to vote left. It is imperative that they vote left. Yesterday on a program, as on The Conscious Mindset, a program on KPFT, 9 o'clock on Sundays, Central Time, The Conscious Mindset, we had a Republican in there trying to give all the reasons why healthcare is not a right, and why everybody who the left just want giveaways. We don't want giveaways. We want what's ours. The left does not want giveaways. The left does not want to work for free. The left does not want any of that. The left wants what's ours. What's ours means not what's owned by those with the left ideologies. It means what is ours, all in the middle class, all in the poor, that's been ripped off from us based on an economy that was designed to rip you off. I repeat, this is an election where, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or anywhere in between, your only vote that makes sense, the only vote that makes sense is to vote progressive. It is in your vital interest. If you are not a corporation, if you are not a wealthy person, everything that is being effected right now by Donald Trump and his cabal, and I'm not the only one saying that, Bill Kristol is as well. Bill Kristol, George Will, and I can go down a stream of real conservatives. I am not talking about conservatives that like the ideologies that I preach about. I'm talking about real right-wing conservatives, not crazies, conservatives. They're telling people, you must vote left. You must vote the Democrat for Democrats this time around. So Republican brothers and sisters, you don't have to just listen to the words of this Democrat, this progressive. I prefer calling myself a progressive. You don't just have to listen to my word. Listen to the folks you have always trusted. Listen to the people who've always made sense to you. Because I tell you, it's not going to be nice. These guys do not have a plan. They cut first to ensure, because it's a lot easier to cut. It's a lot easier to cut spending, or not cut spending. It's a lot easier to cut give tax cuts than it is to raise taxes. When Democrats get back into power, they're going to have to take those taxes back because it's thievery. It's a ripoff. It's stolen property. That's what the tax cuts were. The tax cut broke the rules. The tax cut that got passed by Donald Trump had to come from somewhere. And it's coming from, you remember when they talk, you know, this is what drives me crazy about the left many times. Throwing your grandma off the bus, death panels, all those analogies resonated with people. That is why Obamacare, something that wasn't the best, but something that would have taken one step closer to universal health care and allow a lot of other people to have health care early on, it was derided, demeaned, and destroyed with things people could understand. You remember Luis and something and Luis, that commercial? It talked to the people. Death panels. Well, Republicans are instituting death panels against your grandma, and they're throwing your grandma off the bus if your grandma is doing Social Security. We could actually recycle all those commercials that they made on Obamacare, and we could recycle them all and simply replace Obamacare with any specific Republican policy. That we have not done that is malpractice. That the leaders of the Democratic Party, as we see it right now, have not engaged nationally. I am not talking about in select districts. I'm talking about nationally. That is what they did with Obamacare, and it worked. Americans don't have the time to sit down and learn about Keynesian economics. I could sit down and talk about exactly why Republican economics is wrong. I can get back and talk to you about why it is that under Democratic presidents, the economy always, this is not conjecture, this is stuff you can look up. The economy always does better under Democrats. The GDP is always better under Democrats. And there's a reason why. It's not rocket science. It's just about the way money is distributed. If you are a party that ensures money is distributed to the top, given that the marginal propensity of the top to consume is much less than the bottom, and let me put that in a better English term, the people at the top, if they get extra money, they don't spend any more than they normally would have spent. But the people who are marginal with the amount of money they have, the people who would love to go to a movie, who would love to go to a restaurant, who would love to buy an extra pair of shoes, but wouldn't or don't because they don't have the extra cash to do so, if they get a tax break or money flows their direction, guess what? They spend it. And guess what's economic activity? And I've said this on several times before. Economic activity is how fast money can spend, can turn around in an economy. Not how much money there is in the economy, but how fast money can turn around. So, if you give the money to a rich person, that rich person is going to throw it in the bank. People say, oh, well, that rich person is going to invest into creating jobs. Why would he create jobs if there's nobody buying the stuff that the jobs would manufacture? Supply side economics has always been proven to be a farce, and only the good advertising and the lack of tenacity on the left has allowed that fallacy to survive. It simply makes mathematically no sense. Nada significa nada. Es una farsa. It's a farce. So, why is it that it survives so long? I'm going to tell you a little dirty little secret. It survives that long because it's in the interest also of the establishment wing of the Democratic Party, because the same people that these tax breaks benefit are the same people that get funding from the sources as well. That is one of the reasons I always tell people, when Democrats take over the House, and notice I'm not saying if, I'm saying when, because I'm dependent on all of you to get out there and get others out there to vote and do our civic duty. When we take over the House, when we take over the Senate, the same people that purchased the rank and file of the Republican Party are the same people that will be attempting to purchase the rank and file of the Democratic establishment and every Democrat that gets elected. So Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, right now, good person. The only way she stays good is if we ensure she stays good, because the plutocracy is going to have a narrative for her. They're going to start trading with her. They're going to start saying, "Hey, if you butter me up here, we'll do this for your district." And unless we remind her, and I'm using Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez just as an example. I mean that of every left-wing progressive that we think is pure, that is going in to serve in Congress. Forget it. When they get there, it is our job, the job of the progressive activists, the job of the independent media, to get it done and keep them there. And with all the talking, I forgot that I have to also ask you guys to support Politics Done Right. So let me do that real quickly. Folks, this is a progressive show, Politics Done Right. I'd like to ask you guys to please go ahead to patreon.com/Politics Done Right. Again, that is patreon.com/Politics Done Right. Please support this independent media station. It is so important. Why? Because a lot of what you're going to hear here, you won't hear on mainstream media. Did mainstream media tell you that Trump is playing with you with that deal to get out of that treaty with Russia, just to give the impression that he's not under the heels of Putin? Did anybody tell you that that was a huge scare tactic about showing those massive people coming into America, those brown people coming in as terrorists and MS-13, and how he's going to use that to scare off a whole lot of Americans who are on the tip of making that transition to progressivity? Yes. Did they explain it in that way on the mainstream media? No, they did not. You know why? They have to play the game. All the big pharma advertises with them. All the big oil companies advertises with them. So they have to be tempered in what they say. So folks, please go to patreon.com, patreon.com/Politics Done Right. As a teaser, I'm writing a new book called How to Make America Utopia. And every chapter that I write, I'll put it online. And those of you who are subscribers, very inexpensive subscribers, every time a new chapter comes out, you'll be able to just click on it, and there's an open door that you can go in and read the chapter that I write. I'm a little bit behind because I was in Washington, D.C., so I'm about 8 days behind, but we'll get it done. Every chapter that's released, we'll place it up there. And remember, there's a group associated with this book, the How to Make America Utopia book group. If you give suggestions in that group and we happen to use those suggestions, of course, with your permission, we will cite you in the book. This book is going to be sold everywhere, Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, everywhere. And guess what? There will be a book with your name in it if you give us suggestions and it makes it into the book. So please go ahead and go to patreon.com, patreon.com/Politics Done Right. Be a supporter of Politics Done Right. We promise you to continue doing the job. See, we were back in D.C. doing the job, and we'll be a lot of other places doing the job. We're out there in the streets with Cody Pogue and his team. In fact, I should play one of those videos for you to give some kudos to those kids that are out there working. In fact, before I go, let me just do just that, because I think these guys deserve to be mentioned for what they're doing. I think they're doing such a good deed out there. So let's go ahead and see if I can pull that up in this and show you some of the things that these folks are doing. I'm so proud of Generation Z. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play this for you so that you can see what's going on there. Is cover my face and just listen to this. It's a short video, and then I'll get back to the program. So here we go.
Hi, I'm Kate Dittler. Hi, I'm Tammy Chang.
And look here, we are at the West Gray polling station. Is that where we're at?
Yes.
Do you guys intend to sleep here all night?
Yes.
Why are you doing that?
So we're trying to get young voters energized out to vote. We're college Democrats at U of H, and we're just really excited for this upcoming midterm election.
Now, I heard that the Generation Z, which I think is what you guys are going to make the difference in this election. The guys are going to get Beto elected. What do you feel about that?
It's an honor to be able to vote for someone like Beto, who has come out to our college campuses and really made the effort to reach out to college students.
And I think that's what's the best part of being like a young voter in Texas is just knowing that we have the power to take us from being ranked last in voter turnout to a few ranks higher, I guess. Yeah.
So what are you going to do? You are here camping out to make a statement, right?
Yes.
Now, what are you going to do after you camp out? This camp out is one day. What are you going to do going forward to say, guys, my age, voters, Generation Z, you got to get out? What are you going to do when you leave here?
So our College Democrats at U of H organization has been working out throughout this election cycle to be getting out the vote and promoting these candidates and telling students where to vote. So we're going to go back to U of H right after we vote at 8:30 a.m. and start working to get students out on our shuttle to go vote, and we'll be advocating phone banking and block walking all week. We got 15 more days starting tomorrow until the polls close.
Now, are your candidates going to win?
Yes. Yes. If we do our job, if we get out the young people to vote, they're going to win, and it's going to take all of us.
Thank you very much.
Okay, folks. So as you can see, our Gen Zs, we have quite a few activists out there that's been activating the Gen Zs, and it looks like they just may be the people that weren't counted in all the polls that we've been seeing. Let me see if I can go ahead now and get to real quickly to some of the people on the page. But folks, I want to tell you, we have to go out there and vote. We have to go do our jobs. Okay, let's go ahead and start loading some of these things. Okay, those caravans are at least in part our fault. Okay, the violence Central America. Exactly. I mean, a lot of people don't understand that. But, you know, again, it's too complicated to tell in a 30-second commercial what role America played in that. Trump is scaring his base of reprehensive, stupid people over a handful of migrants 2 countries away, traveling on foot, most of which will never make it to the United States border, which is true. Bruce Pollard, back from Florida, voting tomorrow. All right, Bruce, you go for it, my brother. I should be voting in this week as well. Egberto, after the show, can you link me to the story about Georgia and the woman being ignored by a media elite? Actually, it isn't a story it's actually South Carolina, and it was at the conference that I was at in Washington, D.C. with this guy on stage. What I'll try to do is give you a link to the conference itself. I see if there's a video to that out there, and I'll try to find it. I hope they got her voice because she was shouting this from the audience where we were sitting. The biggest fault with TPP, corporate sovereignty rights. Absolutely. So NAFTA, a.k.a. USMCA, what should we be focused on? The trade agreement. The trade agreements right now, we should be focusing on workers and exactly what you mentioned there as well. And that is not allowing these corporations to have sovereignty over local governments, which in the case if the local government blocks something. I interviewed one of the leaders of the trade the trade movement with Common Cause when I was at Netroots Nation. What I should do is I should cue that video up. And that's what I'll do. I'll cue that video up in the next few days. Chief Justice Rob, thank you for reminding me about that. Already propaganda on NBC. Republicans are leading in the polls. Such BS. That is amazing. I've always wondered why conservative Christians dislike abortion. Jesus never said a single word about abortions. Exactly. Look, these are all games, okay? Let me see what else. Rene Perpetua. Exactly, but they have the middle class hoodwink. Yes, they do. $2 trillion in debt. Let's see what else. I'm going to have to read some of these things offline. Kathleen Morgan, yesterday a conservative told me she likes Trump because he can't be bought and is transparent. Oh, my God. Kathleen, here is the problem. The very people who don't know the truth about Trump and Republicans won't learn about it unless they get their news from independent news outlets instead of Fox. Exactly. And that's why you are so important with sharing these things because I have a lot of conservative followers, okay? Now, if you share this as well, that tag allows other conservatives to see this, and they may just see this and get a chance to see little portions about it, and that is what happens. That is how we share the knowledge. Renee, but they have gotten away with this for a long time. Absolutely. So, folks, we're going to have to close down the show, but again, I'd like to ask one more time. Please, if you are with us right now, please remember this is a progressive show that needs your support. Please go to patreon.com, patreon.com/politics done right. patreon.com/politics done right. Become a subscriber, and you know what? You'll get, as I write individual chapters of how to make America utopia, you'll get to read the chapters as I write. And if you go to our group and give us a suggestion that we use, your name, with your permission, will be in the book, which will be sold all over the place as well. So thank you so kindly for being a part of the show today. We have to head out of here, but you know what? We cannot do this without you. Most important thing I want to get out of you today, please, 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 my brothers and my sisters, please, I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, or whatever, go out and vote. But I am going to tell you one thing. The only vote that you should be making right now is a vote to make sure your personal economy does not suffer. And that vote at this point in our history, in this election cycle, is not Republican. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And guys, you know how I end this baby. I am out.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.
1, 2, 3, 4.